Florida's population is exploding. Are we the fastest growing state in the entire country? I'm Phil Kruse, and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how Florida's epic growth over the last year and earlier is affecting you and our real estate market. We're going to talk about where Florida ranks nationally as far as population growth and what's going on with the international, domestic, and natural migration associated with those numbers. Natural migration to me is a pretty interesting thing. But before we get started, I want to remind you that I am a real estate agent and that my main lead sources, some of my main lead sources are listeners and viewers like you. So when it's your time to make a real estate decision here in the Central Florida area in Orlando, think of me, Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K, Kruse. A portion of all my real estate commissions go to charity. The New Image Youth Center is where I volunteer, or we can donate it to the charity of your choosing. Follow me on social media. Again, Phil Kruse, Kruse, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you know it. Put Orlando, put real estate on there when you're searching. You're going to find me. I do a weekend post every Friday, getting you ready for Orlando's weekend activities and all kinds of great social media content associated with Orlando's real estate market, what's going on around town, infrastructure improvements, and of course, my podcast. Like and subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. I interview local business leaders. I do ones like this, which are about Florida or about Orlando, real estate specific, and all kinds of lifestyle related content as well. I think it really brings a lot of value if you live and work in Orlando and you have any interest in our real estate market, which most of you do. Moving on though. How many people have you met this year that just moved to Orlando? And of those people, how many of them recently moved from another country? So it's estimated that in the next 4 years, Florida's population will net grow by 320,000 roughly people. That is more than the size of the population of Orlando right now. So the entire state of Florida is predicted to grow by the population of Orlando. That is amazing. It's going to drive up our taxes and give us more flexibility from an economic perspective. But where are the majority of those people coming from? So let's back up quickly and look at the national picture. 84% of the nation's 3.3 million person increase based on the last census data that was released came from international migration. Let's let that sink in for a second. 84%. That is insane. Almost all of it. I mean, the vast majority came from international migration. Obviously, migration is a huge political issue. And probably depending on which side of the aisle you're on, you might view it as a positive or a negative. But let's compare it to China. China right now is our biggest competitor on a global stage, at least economically, and their population is decreasing. Okay. They're struggling to take care of the old people in their country. Everyone's getting old. They don't have enough young people. And with their communist regime and their tight policies, they're not bringing in a lot of immigrants. They're going to have a huge issue and already are having a huge issue taking care of their aging population. Us, yes, we're also not having high birth rates, but we're bringing in lots of migrants that can come live and work and provide a tax base and replace aging workers in our workforce. Capitalism obviously makes the world go around, makes the United States go around, is a social construct based on growth. If you're not growing in a capitalist society, you're dying. We have to keep growing. That's why you see the stock market always higher over time. That's why you see housing prices always going up. Wages are always going up. It is a function of growth. If we're not growing as a country, population-wise, that is a sign of a big problem. Most of Florida's growth is also from international migration. Over 70% of our growth is from international migration. Kind of mirrors what's going on in our country. Have you met any Brazilians lately? In Orlando, so many Brazilians are flocking to our city. My wife is Brazilian. I'm intimately connected to the growth of international population here in Orlando. I personally think that in the next few years, Spanish isn't going to be the language you're going to want to know as your second language in Orlando anyway. It's going to be Portuguese, and that might be statewide. If you've ever been down to Miami, if you've ever been down to the malls, if you've been in the outlet malls here in Orlando, everyone's speaking Portuguese. Why is that? It's because the Brazilians that are moving here, they're not escaping, government persecution like you see at the southern border in Texas. The folks escaping there are traveling by foot or illegal, shuttles, and they're escaping, horrible situations in their countries. Brazil, while it has its problems, it's nowhere near like it is in Nicaragua and other, Honduras and other countries in Central America. So the people that are moving here are affluent. They can afford to move here. They can afford to use uh, uh, our immigration, the way we do immigration in the United States. They can use it legally, or in many cases, they work a particular type of system. But I'm going to get off topic there. Bottom line is, the culture brought in by these international folks is awesome. I love the Brazilian culture. Latin culture is great. And guess what? They're coming here and they're creating businesses. Okay. My sister-in-law owns and operates the third largest solar panel installation company in the state of Florida, started by a Brazilian immigrant. And I know a lot of investors, a lot of folks creating all kinds of businesses, restaurants, stuff for kids to do. And I have a kind of an expression. There's a Brazilian for that. All right. So if you need somebody, a handyman around your house, or a plumber, I mean, any trade, they're coming here, they're educated, and they're hardworking. I love it. So for me, the international migration is a great thing, especially if you look at a lot of these lower paying jobs that American citizens over time have proven that they don't want to do. We have some folks that can plug those gaps and keep our capitalism engine growing and thriving and keeping prices down for consumers. Did you know that do you know the most, let me start that over. Do you know the most populated states in the United States? What are they? And is Florida even in the top 5? Florida is the number 3 most populous state in the entire country. 1 and 2, as you might guess, is California is number 1, Texas is number 2. And Florida is the second fastest growing state in the country, only behind Texas. Guess what? Florida and Texas, no state income taxes. This is one of the great parts about living in the state of Florida, is you don't have a state income tax, and then you don't also have to live in Texas, which is arid, and Florida weather. Florida in general is just a better state. I don't think we can argue that here. Maybe our real estate prices are a little higher to reflecting that growth, but it's all good. We do have the fastest growth rate, though, of any other state. So if you want to look at it that way, we're growing by 2% a year. That is huge. The only other region of the country that can even keep up, it's really more, but they're not a state technically, at least not yet, is Washington, D.C. They're just over 2% in growth. And we roughly have 23.3 million people here in the state of Florida. And we know that's going to be increasing. Okay. Real estate prices in Florida are going up. Everyone asks me all the time. It's the most common question I get, and probably the most common question any real estate agent gets is, Phil, are prices coming down? When is a great time to buy? My answer is always the same. It is a great time to buy when you are ready to buy. Okay. Most people buying real estate out there are not speculative investors. Yes, there's plenty of investors out there, but the average person buying a home is a family or a young professional or an empty nester looking to downsize and buy a smaller home or something like that, somebody getting a divorce. And those people need to buy a home. They need to sell a home. Well, we have people moving in from out of state. We have people moving in from other countries. They want to buy homes too. I told you the international folks, at least the Brazilians, they're bringing their money with them. They're buying vacation homes. They're buying homes in Windermere. They're buying homes in Winter Garden and Lake Nona and Winter Park. It's crazy. So you can expect prices to go up. Realtor.com recently released a report that said they predict Orlando is going to be the number 6 fastest growing real estate market as far as price appreciation for 2025. Number 6 out of all 100 major metropolitan cities measured or predicted by Realtor.com. They expect our home prices, the median home price, which is roughly the average. If you're a statistics buff out there, it's not the same, but whatever. They expect that price to go up by 12%. That's crazy. So when is it a good time to buy? As soon as possible. Why? So that you can capture the equity growth in the home that you're going to buy. If you buy a home today and Realtor.com is correct, there's a good chance that that home is worth 10 or 12% more than it is now. So, if you're going to buy now. And this is one of the main reasons. It's the population coming in to the state of Florida, and we have a great economy strengthened by such diversity with great schools, technological hubs, the Space Coast. Obviously, in Orlando, we have Disney and UCF and so many other things. I did a podcast about Neo City. The one before that, the podcast before this one It's so great. But speaking of living in Florida, imagine an old man playing golf with his wife. They have bleach white hair, and they can bring they can barely bring the golf club back halfway in their swing. Is that what you picture when you think of a typical Florida citizen? What I am alluding to is the natural population that I alluded to in the beginning of the podcast, the natural migration. It's not really migration uh, in a sense; it's people being living and dying, basically. So we actually saw a natural decrease in population. Only 17 states in the country saw a natural decrease. This means we've had more people dying over the past year than we have being born. It makes sense, right? Everyone has that cliche, like I mentioned, of the golfer, the retirement community, your Fort Myers, your Naples. That is changing, but it's still a big thing. Look at the villages, right? So you got people moving in from California and New York and Texas and moving to the villages. They're older, they're an aging population. So we actually saw a decrease in net and natural population, but we still are increasing as a whole, due in large part to international migration and also domestic migration. We are one of the oldest states. We have an average age of 42. Do you know what the oldest state is? It's in Maine. A lot of old people like living in Maine, apparently. And the youngest state, I don't think you'll be surprised when I say this, is Utah, all the way down at the average age of 31. The younger the state, it generally implies, the younger the average population, that is, generally implies they have higher birth rates and larger families. And if you know anything about the Mormon culture, then you know that that fits them to a T. And yes, that Utah is a predominantly Mormon state, with the vast majority of their population being in one city. That would be Salt Lake City. Great skiing, by the way. But we are one of the oldest states, indicative of, yeah, we're not cranking out babies, but mainly we have a lot more old people, and more old people are moving in. It's an awesome, diverse aspect of our economy. You have sections of Florida that are for retirement communities. We have 55 plus communities all over the place. But then you have all the other regular, quote unquote, regular communities for more traditional families. We have vacation homes. We have the beach, where you can buy beachfront property, lakefront property in Orlando. We have such a diverse offering for every person from 18 all the way up to 90. Okay. So Orlando, for me, is the best city in the country. And the fact that we are in the state of Florida is a huge part of that. We have no state income taxes, and we are just attracting international and domestic folks in droves. We have over 1,000 people a day moving to Florida, and Orlando is the number one city where those people are moving to. So you better believe our real estate prices are going to continue to go up. If you're interested in buying or selling, obviously I'm your guy. A portion of all my real estate commissions goes to charity, and I am a listing specialist. I specialize in getting your home to sell fast, but not just fast at the highest price, also using something known as the auction effect. It works even in this finally balanced market where buyers and sellers are on equal footing. Again, follow me on all social media platforms. Search Phil Kruse, that's Kruse with a K, Kruse, and Instagram, Facebook, or Google. Put Orlando, put real estate at the end. You're going to see me. Follow me on Spotify, on my podcast. Follow me on Apple and YouTube. It really helps. And turn on the notifications for your platform, so you get a notification every time a new episode drops. I'm providing you with all kinds of value and information about Orlando and about real estate. And always know that your best life in Orlando is within reach. Keep embracing every moment. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Cheers.